That works better. No, don't put the video back on. Good morning, good evening, good something. How is everyone this week?
Pretty good.
Got my caffeine.
How about you?
I'm waking up.
I'm hanging in there. Just had to do a little bit of an adjustment really quick to the YouTube description there, thanks to some nice folks who pointed out we had last week's description sitting in this week. So
I actually quickly fixed so I added some links over there. We will add more links for this special edition.
Very cool. Well, I am Scott Stahl, and let's see here. I think we have an intro something somewhere.
Here we go.
Simon's not able to be with us today, unfortunately. Fortunately, though, for him, it is paying work that has dragged him away. So at least that's good. I'm Scott Stahl. I am a community leader for Flutter, been fluttering since 2017, and I am organizer of GDG Cleveland. Majid?
And my name is Majid Hajian, Flutter Google Developer Expert, and one of the proud admins and community leader. And that's it. Back to you. Randal.
Oh, yeah, okay. I can't see you here. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Would you? We never know. Now you go next. Okay, what? Who's you? All right. I'm Randal Schwartz. I've been in the industry for 40 years. I'm a GDE, got to get all the letters in there, Google expert. And recently I've been on 6 different GDG meetups. I've been just going nuts. So I'm just a GDG hangout guy. So I'm looking for all those. And if you want me on yours, just ping me. I'm easily available, and I'll be there. Unless it's
for those of you who don't know, GDG stands for Google Developer Group, and GDG, the GDG division ecosystems, just got permission from branding so that we can now call ourselves Google Developer Groups. Before, the lawyers wouldn't let us do that. We had to actually call it GDG, but now we can say Google Developer Group. And in other words, they are meetups that are kind of supported by Google. They help train the leaders, and they have nice retreats and summits, and lots of presentations, lots of resources. You can get Googlers to come out to your group. So yeah, being part of a GDG can be a very big deal. And also when when Google is putting on special events like Code Labs and in extended various things like that, Google will help you pay for the food. Okay. They won't pay you. Sorry. You can't cash the check. Doesn't work that way. No direct deposit. But they will help cover some of the expenses. So this is really something good to belong to and something to get involved with, especially now that we may soon be able to get out in person again. But until then, something Randal just said was he's done 6 talks recently. We used to have to travel in order to stand up on a stage and talk to people. Okay. I literally drove 10 hours to Albany, New York, to the area there in the capital region to do 2 days worth of speaking. I flew to Calgary, Canada, in order to speak. At one point, I was lucky enough to fly to London to speak at a DroidCon. Now, all of that is over, at least for a while. I don't get to travel. I don't get to eat airport pizza. I don't get to participate in open bars or wander around on beautiful beaches, paid for by Google or other groups that are sending us around. But This is good for you because it means that your groups can get us to speak anywhere. If you're in Africa and you need somebody to come speak, let us know. We can do that.
I was just going to mention I've been in the Akara one for the last couple of episodes. That's every Sunday. They're starting from scratch and working their way up, building up an app that does shows the weather. And so I'm the Q&A at the end of the show every time, and the beginning of the show this time because the other guy was late. But it's so great because their timing is such that it's noon my time and 7 p.m. their time. It's a great mix in. It's a great way to be involved with everybody all over there. I want to add to what you just said, Scott, just briefly. GDG groups were traditionally created because of regional get-togethers. And so they're sort of mixed in terms of topics, but they are starting now to create GDGs that are Flutter specific. And these are the ones I'm looking for to be at, because I can be at them every month then, because it's all Flutter, as opposed to the general ones. Like there's a GDG for Portland right here where I'm at right now, Portland, Oregon. But they had mixed topics. So I could only be at the ones that were basically Flutter. I wasn't really interested in much of anything else they were doing.
And I noticed we have someone here from Mogadishu.
Ooh.
So I'm sorry. I am not going to try to pronounce your name. I'm not going to insult you like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, from Somalia. So and if there are people, if there's a group anywhere, including Somalia, we can speak for you about Flutter. And it's kind of funny because I never did go to Somalia, but I have been to Djibouti. Fun times.
Cool.
So
Cool.
I'm sure our gentleman knows where that is. All right. Why don't we get into our do's and don'ts? And why doesn't somebody else do it this time? Majid, would you like to do the honors?
Yeah, sure. So, as always, code of conduct. What should we do, or what should not do? Actually, so simple. Please respect each other. Be mindful, and do not spam the channel with a lot of questions. Once you write your question, we will get them, and eventually we will answer those questions. And generally, just be polite and respect each other. And that's our do's and don'ts. Let's move on to our exciting news, Scott. We have a very cool episode, let's say, show today.
We have tons of exciting news. Coin is being listed on the NASDAQ today. No, we're not. Okay, no, this is not crypto. Never mind. This is not cryptocurrency. Let's see. Oh, so many different things going on today. Well, we have the rumor is that we have a Flutterista conference coming up.
Ooh.
Yes.
Very exciting moment. So,
we have a number of
in the show.
Yes. Well, let's see. We have Stephanie Patterson and
Hello,
Danielle
Stephanie.
Cox.
Hi.
And we have Sarah Fulmer. And they are here to tell
Hello,
you about
Sarah.
the Flutteristas and their conference that's coming up. So,
Hi, absolutely.
with that, we're going to get out of the way.
All right. Well, as we've been tweeting out and trying to let people know, I got to get in the middle here. We have to. We're having a conference on Saturday that is being put on by the Flutteristas, with help, I might add, from the Flutter community, and we're doing that on Saturday. We're trying to do it so it's basically should have a time where everybody can be awake. So it's a long one-day conference, and so we're excited about that. And while it's put on by the Flutteristas, it is for everybody. So anybody that's watching, I would love for you to come and check it out and see what we're doing. And you want to tell us a little more stuff?
For those who don't know what a Flutterista is, Flutteristas is a community for people who identify as women or non-binary and who have a passion for Flutter. So if you're out there and you identify as either of those, you're welcome to join Flutteristas. But as Danielle said, our conference coming up this weekend is for everybody. Sarah, anything to add?
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about the content of the conference. We have some great speakers lined up. I am one of them, just kidding. There's got some really good talks coming. And in addition to that, we have some activities. And I am here to tell you about all the fun activities and prizes that you can get if you participate. So there's a lot. I can't talk about it all, but if you go to flutteristas.org, you can see the speaker agenda and also go to the activities and prizes page to see the details. On the table is some dashes, a lot of cool courses, some swag, and the activities themselves are really fun, I think. We've got some quizzes that will be done live, and we also have some pre-conference activities that are being announced today, actually. So there's an app challenge that you can complete between now and the start of the conference. I think that will be tweeted out in an hour or something like that. And that will be from something called Flutter Challenge, which is a new community initiative, or community members are putting that together. And then Stream is hosting a code lab that we're going to tweet out later. And during the conference, there will be a scavenger hunt by the app company, as well as several homemade Flutterista activities, quizzes, escape rooms, polls. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I've been on a couple of the practice sessions for some of the activities, and I have to say, I think they're going to be a lot of fun. It's the best I've seen for a conference coming up. So.
Oh, thank you.
I totally agree. It's exciting, one, to have all the sponsors that we have, two, the activities that the fun and activities team has put together. So it's going to be lots of fun. The fun part is, those of us on the West Coast, it starts at 6:30 in the morning on Saturday. But everybody else in the world will have already been up for a little while. But anyway.
Well, and like I said, we're trying to make it a full day, but it should have a period of time, hopefully, for everybody that's listening, wherever you are, there'll be some time where you can be awake and actually do it live with us, because everything will be available after, but the prizes and stuff won't. The fun of participating with our map and stuff like that, to let us know where you are, the ability to ask questions, because we're doing interviews with several Flutter royalty, and so the ability to interact that way is not available if you don't watch live. So we hope you're going to be there. We hope you'll find a way to do it. And again, let's go ahead and check and see where people can register. Where's that stuff?
That is on flutteristas.org, and there is a register link.
Perfect. Can you see that link on the screen here?
Yes, I just want to mention that many of the activities require a ticket ID to participate. So you can go, it's free, just follow the link, and you'll get a ticket ID when you sign up. So then you can participate in many of the quizzes and so forth.
Absolutely. And we're going to see we're going to be showing it's going to be on the community's YouTube channels, where we're actually doing the broadcast of it. After that, the Flutteristas have a YouTube channel. We're going to put the content on there as well. And we're going to, so you can watch it without signing up and registering, but we'd like you to register because we'd like to know how many people are interested, but also more importantly, so you can get that ticket ID and you can participate in these fun activities and be eligible for prizes.
There are so many great prizes. I really wish I could register for those. They're fantastic.
So Steph, what kind of talks do we expect to have?
We have a variety. We've got testing in Flutter. We have Sarah, I'll let Sarah talk about hers. We have others talking about their journey. We have the youngest Flutterista is going to be presenting. She is 16 and going to be talking about how Flutter has helped change her life and how she's doing development. That's going to be very exciting.
And she's going to be co-hosting with me for the first part.
Oh, there you go.
So.
And we're going to have Q&A with, as Danielle said, we've got some special people in the first part. We have 4 parts. They're all broken up, and we'll have breaks in between and things like that. And I'm trying to think of all the speakers, and my brain just went completely blank.
Well, we have talks about different aspects of also developing Flutter. So it's not all soft talks. It's mostly
Right.
talking about how to do certain things. Like if you've been around for very long, you know Pooja, and she's going to be talking about testing. And we've got Noel's actually going to be on screen. You all may not know her, but she's always around and helping out with moderating things. So she'll actually be on camera giving a talk. And we're looking forward to that. And our very own Sarah here is actually giving what I think is one of the most unique talks we're having. What's the title of it?
Generative 2D art in Flutter.
Right.
I don't want to say too much, just tune in.
Exactly right. Yeah, come and see it. That's absolutely right. And I've seen a practice of that. And once again, I think it'll be good too.
Sorry for the interruption there. So on flutteristas.org, there is also the agenda is on there, and something that's very fascinating for people who are new to this. There's a presentation from zero programming knowledge to software engineer in 2 years. That one's going to also be exciting. We're going to see Flutter animations with Flutter, and some demonstrations with Rive. And there's a lot there. So take a look, but join us because you're going to have a lot of fun.
And I've actually, Scott, if you can share my screen. All right, so basically, we've got our website here. And just to kind of let you know what kind of community we are, the photo there at the top of our site was actually from Flutter Interact, which was in New York City in December of 2019. I think it was the last big Flutter event that we had. And those are a lot of Flutteristas, many of whom are still with us, some of whom have moved on for various reasons, but we're also very fond of all of them. And if you come in here, you actually have the ability to get your free ticket, but then we also have the what's going on with it and who our speakers are and things like that, so you can learn more about it. We've got great sponsors that have come in with us, and we'll definitely talk about them a lot more on the day of. But we're very thankful for all of these people, and that's pretty much. Go ahead.
Would you mind just navigating to the activities and prizes page so people can see where they can learn more about that? It's either in the hamburger, or if you scroll down a little bit, just go to the hamburger.
Activities and prizes, absolutely. Okay. So, I mean, these dashes are, everybody has them around, and they are the coolest things ever. This is a classic dash, an old one, but you'll be getting the newer, smaller one, and
like right here.
Okay, yes, like that one, and so we've got that, but we've had several people who have really stepped up and provided stuff. We've the Ray Wenderlich Ultimate Professional subscription is something that would be amazing to win. I wish I were really eligible to do that, but that said, we've got quite a bit of extra stuff in here that have been brought together, and it's great to see the support for the Flutteristas from everybody, and we want to give back. And this all started as kind of a dream of mine, because one of the things that we did as Flutteristas is we went through some speaker training to try to get better at talking and to people and things like that. And so one of the things that we want to do is we want to gain the experience with this conference so that we can go out and be better members of the community at large. One of the comments I hear a lot are from people who wonder, well, why do we need something like this? Well, we need it because we're trying to create a very supportive environment and safe for people that are not used to interacting with everybody else. And so that's kind of why we're there, but it's not the only place we want to be. We also want to be part of the bigger community and part of that. And so, and I think this is going to help lead that out, and hopefully it'll help lead to better female, brought content for every other conference that's out there coming up. So we look forward to that. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Steph?
Oh, wow. Sorry, I was so
I'm
engrossed
sorry.
with what I was so
I-
engrossed with what you were saying. I was totally not ready for that.
I meant to say, Sarah, do you have anything else to add?
No, it's okay. One of the things that I found very rewarding personally and professionally about the Flutteristas is that I have something in common with everyone. I'm not saying that people who identify as male aren't great. We have great support. I love working with all of them. The Flutter community is amazing just in general. But over the last 30 years of programming, I have been a minority and often pushed aside and not been able to speak or feel comfortable asking questions. And for the first time in my very long career, I can actually ask questions. And that's not just within the Flutteristas, that's within the Flutter community. I don't have to feel intimidated. But the nice thing about the Flutteristas is there are people who live in parts of the world who don't have that same luxury that I have here in the US. And I really like the fact that they have a safe place to come and know that they're not going to be belittled or basically told to be quiet. So it's a wonderful, safe place. And I think it's great. And I'm so glad to have found the organization. And we've grown so much just in the last 6 months. That's even better. And this conference, as Danielle has talked about, and Sarah, I am so excited because, again, we have speakers who are part of the world that are in part of the world that they're not able to do presentations and feel comfortable
To people, yeah.
and to be able to speak live or, so I'm so excited. It's overwhelming getting ready for it. I will admit that, but our community is awesome. And Danielle and I co-managed the Flutteristas, and I needed to take a step back from things, and people stepped right up and took the helm. And Sarah helped. She's been amazing, as well as everybody else. And anytime we want anything, and this is going to go on record, anytime we need anything done, we assign it to Nawal, and then she of course cracks up. But that's a running joke. But sometimes we really do assign stuff to her. So it's great. And I want to thank everybody from the Flutter community, for the Flutteristas who stepped up and helped me out. Thank you so very much.
And
Sarah,
one thing,
your turn.
one thing, seeing Sarah's, that Sarah just reminded me of, maybe accidentally, I don't know, but we also are able to, as part of being a female group, we're able to have conversations that just frankly aren't appropriate with everybody else, because we all are coming from a different place than the majority of Flutter people out there. And so, being a mom and some of the stuff that does is often, can get more graphic than I think we would like to talk about with guys, So anyway, Sarah, what would you like to add?
I just wanted to say that I just checked the ticket registration page, and we currently have 827 people registered.
Wow.
So, yeah,
that's awesome.
I know.
Awesome.
So if you haven't registered yet, come join the party. You'll be in good company.
One thing that we talked about is part of our conference, the Flutter community, Majid, Simon, Randal, Nash. We have a lot of people who are going to be helping us behind the scenes. And I want to say in advance, thank you so much for helping us with this and giving us a platform that we're able to do this. So in advance, thank you. We'll thank you again, but just so you know, we really appreciate all of your support and help that you've been giving us in the last long while.
Well, and specifically for letting us hop on here now and have this opportunity to talk about our conference. So thanks, Scott. I think that's about it for us.
I admit I haven't been looking at comments to see if there's anything for us. But anyway, I do see that there are a lot of Flutteristas out there. So yay for joining.
Yes.
And let's see here. I'm just making sure that Majid and Randal are ready. I mean, there are a few things worse than having the camera turned on you while you're like this.
Oh,
She's
actually-
Randall.
But only a few things worse.
Yeah. There you go.
But all right. Well, I'm going to need to run because we got to do a little more planning.
Okay.
Get
Sure.
stuff going, and so I
Me
think Steph
too.
and I are going to definitely drop off.
All
Thanks
right.
for having us.
So
See you guys
Thank
Saturday.
thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
It is for a question on YouTube. It is a Flutter conference.
It is for Flutter, yes, and anybody can join. You do not have to be a Flutterista. Please come and see it, please.
Yeah.
We would
We'll
like
leave that link up there for a while longer.
Great.
Ah,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, as an admin and such in the community, I didn't think that we were losing Sarah too, but anyway, as an admin in the community, we hear a lot of things that most of you wouldn't hear. We see what people go through, and you would be either sick or furious to hear not just the types of things, but how often it happens to ladies who are they're just trying to do a job. I mean, they study for 4 years, they graduate with a degree like the rest of us, they go and get their certifications. And then there are people within the Flutter community who have basically just been told that, oh, you're wasting the professor's time. You don't have what it takes to do this. You should just stay home. Yeah, and that literally happens. So there are a lot worse things than that as well. When one lady I know happened to basically call out an idiot and embarrassed him in front of people, he started running around the whole university starting rumors about her. You know, men don't have to put up with this. And, you know, I mean, I know people who have been hit on in job interviews. That the person interviewing them was more interested in trying to go out on a date than seeing if they were able to do the job. And I know one person who had to leave a Fortune, I guess, 10 company, really big company, over sexual harassment. So, and I've heard some men saying, oh, well, why do they need Flutteristas? They shouldn't need it. Yeah, they do. It's over stuff that you don't hear about. So there is a need. And one of the reasons actually that we want to host this for the ladies is to send a clear message. It's very different for them to just host it on their own completely, and for them to come in under the established Flutter community and Flutter community saying, hey, this is important. So we're saying, hey, this is important. So anybody else before I pass out from talking too much?
You're talking so good, so I cannot say
Yes.
anything. I'm just watching you.
You have more history with this than the rest of us, so you're doing well.
I've been helping people deal with stuff like this since the 90s.
Yeah.
I kid you not.
Wow.
But that's actually very correct. I have one point here is that, I always said that like Flutteristas and all these minority groups, let's say, or I don't know how I call it, minority or stars or whatever, in different communities, it's very important. It's a very crucial part of each community. And if one community doesn't have that, that means there is something wrong with that community problem.
Yeah.
You know, and we should be very proactive in that sense and just create those communities and let them grow, because it's very important. I have several like many good friends, female friends, especially in the community. And once one of them told me way back, maybe 4 years ago, I was in one of the conferences as a speaker, and we were talking, and she said that, you know, sometimes you don't feel how awkward it is when there are like a conference with 500 men and like 5 female in between. And, you know, so, and this is the situation that we, at least in Flutter community, let's say, we're trying to help to remove these kind of feeling. Why we should give these type of feeling to female when they come to us or to conferences? They are just a human. right? And we should not treat them differently. And that's very weird.
Well, unfortunately, I don't want to dive too deeply into this rabbit hole because we can go on for weeks. But there are different types of people in the world, and they have different capabilities of emotion. And the people that you're describing, the people who can see others as human, don't normally cause the problems. It's others who see people as objects or who just don't care. They can cause a lot of the problems. And for those of you who are younger, you may not remember something called Gamergate. I'm going to look that up. GAMERGATE. A lot of ladies lost their careers over that nonsense. Okay, they left the industry completely because the harassment was so bad. There's something else called incels. INCEL. It stands for involuntary celibates. And basically, I like to call them guys who can't get a date. And the reason they can't get a date is their attitudes. And instead of realizing that, they just turn around and get angry at everybody else, and their attitudes get worse. All kinds of bigotry, misogyny, women hating, you name it.
It's never surprising. It's never surprising that some of those people are the way they are. I mean, it's like the category is self-describing and self-fulfilling.
Yeah, pretty much. And, so people say, why do they need these closed groups where they only have people who are members of the group, like women and non-binary and the Flutteristas? That's why. Okay. And again, we're going to have to change the subject here and get on to Flutter, but point being, if you don't see these things, odds are, A, you're not an admin. Otherwise, you would be hearing them and dealing with them. Yeah. Sure. And B, just wait long enough and you'll see it. And also in the US, it depends on where you are and who you're dealing with as to whether or not you run into this. But remember, not everyone watching here is from the US or from Europe. We've got a lot of people in places like Saudi Arabia. You want to try to be a woman in tech in Saudi Arabia? And you wonder why they need Flutteristas? So, yeah, that. Alrighty. We're a little bit short here today, so...
I'm the same height as I always am.
Yeah, well... I'm wondering if we can draft a few people.
Ooh.
I see a Kevin Moore. I see a Kathy Walrath. I thought I saw a Bobby somewhere, didn't I? In the start of the stream.
It's just going to be like invite in Slack, which really means summon.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's not an invitation. You're already in the channel.
Yeah, pretty much. But yes. So we want to start the Q&A portion here shortly. But also, I do want to point out that there are all kinds of good things happening in Flutter. Null safety is pretty much up to speed on all the maintained packages. I have been seeing some discussions about packages that are just not being maintained.
Yeah.
And that is not Flutter. That is individual community members who created those packages and then, I don't know, took up bowling, but they didn't come back. And there are some questions about what to do with those. And, so all that's going on. If you're running into packages that aren't maintained, before you complain to the Flutter team or about the Flutter team, make sure that they're Flutter team packages to begin with, because most of them aren't. So let's see. Null safety is going very well. Flutter Web is cruising along. We're still getting 10,000 questions about SEO.
Yeah.
Look.
2.13 got rolled inside in the dev channels. So we'll be seeing 2.13 anytime now.
And if you've ever done SEO for a JavaScript web app, you already know what to do for a Flutter web app because it compiles to JavaScript for the web. It's not that hard. Make sure your text is answering the relevant questions, because the web crawler is going to compile your code and it's going to examine that text, same as usual. The one thing that we keep saying is, when you do if you're doing the whole site in Flutter, keep in mind that's like doing a whole website in JavaScript, not just one page at a time or one applet at a time, which you can also do with Flutter. That's actually what a lot of people recommend. You don't make the whole site in Flutter. You don't need to. Just like you don't make the whole site a JavaScript web app. But if you do decide to make your whole app as a website, break the pages up and use deferred loading. Because what's going to happen is the web crawler is going to look at the load time for all of your files before it renders the first page, and it's going to turn around and say that's how long it takes to render your first page, which can be a long time if you're actually loading all the data that it needs for 10 pages. And then if there is information, if there is code in that JavaScript that's not used on the first page, the web crawler is going to ding you for having unused JavaScript on your first page, which is what the web crawler thinks, because it thinks it's only getting the first page. So if you're going to use Flutter on the web for more than just like the New York Times Ken puzzle, the puzzle is Flutter Web. Okay, not the whole New York Times site. But if you are going to make a website out of Flutter Web, you really need to dig into deferred loading. It's a very big deal.
I've also been looking at a possible framework that basically sends down as Flutter.js code a framework that would then use REST calls to pull up each individual page as like Markdown or something, and then display the Markdown. I also already have a proven technology for hooking into the router to go in and amend the metadata, the head data of your page in a very rapid way, a way in such that the crawlers will see that data. So it can update the title and the meta description so far in my proof of concept based on your router URL, and which is something that will be visible in the address bar too if you make your links correctly. So there are things that we can do about this. We don't have to wait for the people in Cupertino, not in Cupertino, that's the other guys, the people in Mountain View to come up with solutions for this. There are things we can do today already with this stuff.
And there are also a lot of effort from the community, I believe. So, you know, some of the stuff comes from the Flutter team itself, but many of the things like packages and things that helps to make this stuff easier comes from the community members, right? And I know some stuff that is happening, like for Flutter Web, for example. I know that you, Randal, are working on that very hard right now. I myself experimenting with a very crazy idea is that to kind of get like an SSR, server-side rendering for Flutter, but I don't say much how, but it's technically I'm trying to kind of use the service worker. I'm not sure if you know what service worker is, but service worker is like a proxy between your app and the server. So perhaps there are some possibilities that before your JavaScript get to the browser, you file it and render it as HTML and just push it down back to the screen. And I experimented a bit. There are a lot of stuff happening. And my point is that, so stay tuned. Flutter Web, of course, is new. It's not a big, let's say, it's not as competitive as those big names on the web for years, like React or Vue or Angular, etc. So it's pretty new. It's a small baby. It's growing, but I'm sure that the Flutter Web will get eventually to that point with all of these efforts.
And you can imagine that Google using their now mostly internal product of Angular Dart for all the AdSense and AdWords stuff, that they want that to be seen by the other part of Google, the crawler people, to be properly indexed. So the technology is there for a reason. The fact that we've moved a lot of our display code in all architectures to mostly JavaScript means that the crawlers have had to keep up with that and figure out how to actually render this stuff so that it's as if the person is sitting there looking at their screen, and then index that. And that's all very carefully detailed, at least Google's documentation. I'm sure, the other big crawlers, which I won't mention because that would just be competitive names, but you know who you are. You know the ones you don't use. But I'm sure they all do rough with the same thing now. They have to, because so much of this content provided by these web apps, these single page web apps, is worth being crawled, and they'll keep it going.
And actually these days, there was a problem like maybe 4 years ago with single page application, just JavaScript application and stuff. And because some browsers were just rendering, some search engines, like especially Google, were just loading HTML, normal DOM and stuff, not JavaScript and stuff. But nowadays, I think Google 2 years ago announced that they use evergreen heads of their browsers to render your application. That means they can crawl like as you are creating your application in any way, single page application, server side rendered, or any type of application. So it's much safer to have a single page application, let's say these days, for crawling and indexing on Google.
Right.
Especially.
We are starting to get a number of questions. Sorry, I have been going crazy doing admin stuff here. Just if you've ever seen the GIF of Kermit the Frog, yeah, that's what I feel like sometimes. Well, for one, it's StreamYard has this strange habit of sending me an email in the middle of the stream, which always kind of makes me panic, because it's like, are we about to go down? What's going on? No, they're just trying to sell us things. Anyway, one question that we keep seeing over and over again is whether or not we think there are going to be any jobs in Flutter. Jobs in Flutter. Let's see. Toyota is now putting Flutter in their infotainment system for everything, for all of their vehicles. BMW already was using Flutter. I happen to have it on good authority that some casinos that I shall not name are working with Flutter for their client apps, which are huge. To give you an idea of the type of app that they're looking at, they're going to have people able to book their own hotel reservations, set up all of their travel, handle all of their gambling stuff, and all of their accounting, set up tickets for shows, everything. This is all through one app, and it's going to be Flutter. Good grief. You want to talk about app? Okay, I forgot to silence something. Never mind. You want to talk about apps, about possible work being available for Flutter. Ubuntu Canonical just said that Flutter is now the recommended way to write desktop apps for Ubuntu. Now, granted, the vast majority of those are open source, but not all of them are. And I happen to know that Canonical themselves were hiring Flutter developers. Also, Amazon Web Services was hiring about 30 Flutter developers recently.
That's to support Amplify, right?
Yep, that's all about Amplify. I happen to know that, we all know that John was on from Microsoft talking about the things that Microsoft is now doing with Flutter, and they're going to be pulling in some Flutter developers. They've already got a Flutter team. Where else? 2 large insurance companies, several automakers. Go right ahead.
I got to say that a year ago, I had a standard search, continuous search on LinkedIn and a couple of other places for Flutter jobs, and it was getting almost nothing in the US. A lot of stuff in down in the subcontinent, but nothing in the US. And now I'm getting pinged at least once every 24 hours, usually about every 12 hours, with a brand new Flutter application programmer needed with LinkedIn.
And the nice thing is it's getting to be relevant because for months we were getting iOS dev and LinkedIn was saying, oh, that's a Flutter job. No, it's not a Flutter job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's gotten much better.
Or full stack. Full stack.
Yeah. Full stack. Oh, that's obviously Flutter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have the same situation right now. So in my LinkedIn, when I open, like maybe every day, I live in Norway, so like Eastern European part of the world. There's a lot of companies, startups specifically. They are coming and they are choosing Flutter. And I have to say that in Norway, choosing new technology is a bit. The people here are a little bit, like, let's say, companies are a little bit conservative. So, but when I see a lot of jobs in my region, let's say in Nordic countries, and that means there are a lot of jobs. But I have some maybe advices for those who cannot find those jobs. So what I do, because maybe me, Scott, and Randal, we are very exposed and we are very into Flutter. So maybe that's because we are seeing a lot of these jobs, right? And not many people are like us. So not many people follow many channels and many people, Flutter people, let's say. But what I can tell you is that, so you can do a couple of things to see these jobs more frequently. First of all, follow or be connected with those who are very involved in Flutter community, like Scott, Randal, Simon, and many others. Because as soon as we see like a job offer or some type of advertisement for a job, we just retweet or reshare on LinkedIn, and that's one way. Another way is that on your local network, try to find your local community for Flutter. So I happen to be a Flutter community organizer in Norway, and I also organize like Flutter Conference, and probably know Flutter Vikings. And many people come to us, and we share those opportunities because that's a local advertisement. I don't need to put it on Twitter or on LinkedIn or somewhere else. I just share it with my local member community, So maybe you should get in touch with those local community and be part of those meetups or GDG groups or things like that. And these connections help you to stay in the, let's say, be in the loop of finding jobs and or let's say Flutter jobs in general.
Yeah.
Do you have any other advice for folks on the chat right now or live stream?
There is one simple way to make sure you can get a Flutter job. Move to Berlin. And in the like Randal was saying, in the US, Flutter had been around for 2 years, and it was beginning to get very, very frustrating because nobody wanted to leave native. And it was like, just try it. And trying to get these people to do anything was like trying to drag them through cement. Whereas I'm sitting there watching London and Berlin just explode, and China going crazy, and Africa going crazy with Flutter, and getting better and better and faster and faster. In Berlin, you can't walk to McDonald's without tripping over 3 Flutter jobs. I know a company in London who was trying to get a Flutter developer in Europe for about, I don't know, how long has Suave been looking? Suave's company, 3 months now? They just gave up on trying to stay in the European time zone and have opened up to the US now. So they're willing to put up with a 5 or 6 hour time difference just to try to get somebody right now.
And one of the things I've seen is you're probably going to have better luck still with greenfield implementations. Trying to convert your existing developers from being very, very happy with React Native or something like that I was doing that so the lip readers wouldn't even see it. But I've heard of successful stories there too, when they see that they used to have an iOS team and an Android team and a web team now, all separate, and they're able to bring it all into the same group with Flutter. They're getting, much better deployment of bug fixes and stuff because you're fixing one code base now. And so it isn't like the iOS team gets ahead of the Android team or vice versa. It's now all in sync. So there are some advantages to the multi-platform ability for Flutter to take on that are now starting to entice the legacy companies.
Yep.
But you're probably still going to see more hiring in greenfield starts. So you want to watch for where you're starting to see new things. I'm currently being in negotiation with a company in Austria that is building a Flutter app for their for a new medical tool that they want to make. And to me, that's exciting. I anything that can help out, people, especially as they start aging, and I can't talk more about it than that, is going to be wonderful. And I would really enjoy working on this project. But it's a greenfield. They don't have an iOS and Android written in React Native already. They're starting from scratch, and the CTO went for Flutter right from the get-go. And so they're hiring Flutter people.
Yeah. Another point, I believe your name is going to be pronounced Frey. I'm sorry if I get that wrong. But they point out that a lot of agencies are switching, and I am seeing a lot of that. I have seen a lot of agencies have reached out to me saying, hey, would you be available if we get a Flutter client? Because we're seeing a lot of activity and a lot of, that's a lot of staffing companies, but a lot of agencies are also looking to spin up their capability for Flutter. And I know of one agency that actually told me that I could go on with them for one client, and instead of not working at all in between clients, they want to keep you on payroll in between clients and just have you keep working at improving your skills or helping to train some of their other people. So don't discount the agencies. You can actually look for what they call a lot of times staffing firms or technology consultants, things like that. So there's also a lot of work in that. So let's see.
Like let's got freelancer websites. Let's say also another way. A lot of jobs on freelancer websites. So maybe you can just get some project and do some stuff, until you get a permanent job.
Just make sure that they're offering like a minimum of $40 or $50 an hour. Anybody who's trying to pay less than that, no. Just there are some of these sites that want to pay $100 for a job that's going to take a week. It's like, I can go stand there and give people fish and chips in their car and make more money than that. So no, you're not going to get a developer for that.
Scott, you're going to have to also be careful though, because this is a contextual value, and the cost to hire someone that's in most of the Western Hemisphere is a bit more expensive than some other places on the planet. And for there, $5 an hour might be the difference between food and no food.
Point.
And so you have to be careful about that. And that's why I always ask when somebody says, I have this project that's a week long. Anybody interested? I go, are you paying US rates? Are you paying rates from other parts of the world? What's our standard here?
Well, the other thing though, Randall, is $5 an hour would be about 4 times what I've seen some of these things on some freelancer sites pay. I can't name them because we'll get sued.
I'm just saying there is a big range of even legitimate offers, and you need to understand the time zone of your potential client and also the pay rate based on what sort of community standards.
Okay, so we're taking a look here. We've been watching YouTube and trying to reflect what people are talking about. So we're starting to get some talk in here about Flutter Web. The question about needing to improve Flutter Web or having some doubts about Flutter Web. Could we be more specific? So if you're more specific in your comments, we can actually start to answer some stuff, which would be good.
And I think we talked a little bit about that earlier today, because I talked about my project that I'm building and some of the other things that have concerned us. There's nothing out of the box yet, though. There's, like I said, there's nothing that the home team, well, there's probably things the home team's doing, but I'm not privy to them. If you need it now, you need to do some of your own footwork.
Yeah.
And but it's all possible. That's the other thing. It's like, in something like a good weekend, I was able to come up with my meta text alter and hook it into the router. And it was just a long weekend for me. It was fine. I need to package it up a little bit better so I can actually put it on Pub, and I need to do a couple screencasts about it because that's always fun. The big screencast is going to be even just talking about how conditional imports work, because nobody seems to get that quite right, and even the doc page on it is misleading. So I've got a much cleaner solution for this that doesn't require the stub file and everything else. It's actually really, really smart. So there are things that can be done. Ask in the forums, ask in the right places, and people will be willing to help and share what they've discovered so far. But it's not like the technology is not there. It just needs to be adapted in a way that makes sense for your particular use case. And also follow the advice, which is that this really isn't to build websites. This is to build SPAs that have that are like Gmail, except faster. They're like Gmail. It doesn't keep going refresh, and the whole page changes over and over again. It just content on the page changes. And that's the sort of thing that Flutter will be perfect for. Someone asked me if they're going to rewrite Gmail in Flutter, and I go, I don't know. Probably not a commercial incentive in that yet. And
I'm not sure that would be a good idea. But another thing too I'm seeing is Flutter Web being used for companies' internal tools. And to give you also looking for jobs in Flutter, you want to keep in mind that the vast majority of things I see Flutter being used for are never going to see the app stores.
Yeah.
These are tools for a company's salespeople. These are tools for when a customer brings back something that they have been leasing. The staff has to inspect it and make sure everything's okay. These are tools for financial people to be able to scan someone's driver's license, and their company fetches lots of information about them that the person needs in order to make decisions for their job. These are not things that you're going to see on the App Store.
And there's also an uptake of, as I've been hearing, of more Flutter desktop being used for those. Which has pluses and minuses. It can read and write your local file system, for example. The web has a really hard time doing that, and things like that. So as desktop moves out of beta, it's still beta, guys. Even though we've called it all
technically,
it's all a stable branch, but it's still beta. As it starts moving out of that, moves into more production ready, mandates. It's going to it's real. I think it's going to change a lot of the desktop market, because
my
we have this beautiful UI.
My understanding is a desktop is basically a release candidate status at this point. It's not released, but the team has asked for people to stress test it. If you can break it, break it.
Yep.
Just tell them how you broke it.
File the issues.
Yeah. definitely file issues, which reminds me of something here. Everybody keeps asking when will Flutter this and when will Flutter that.
Yeah.
When
Exactly.
are you going to make it happen?
Yeah.
Okay. Flutter is open source. Google is leading the charge. Google is putting money into it. Google is paying full-time staff to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you, not everyone who has permission to merge in the Flutter SDK and who can merge into the repo works for Google. Okay. This is not controlled by Google. It is fed by Google. It is helped tremendously by Google. But if there's something that you want to see happen, it's up to you to help make it happen.
Mm-hmm. So I want, could I bring up my other issue now, Scott? I think it'd be a good time. So I just want to say that most of you already know that I patrol pretty much everything that's listed in flutter.dev/community. I'm now on Discord now on top of all the other things. So I'm flooded by questions all the time. I answer as many as I can because I always learn a little bit of stuff every time I answer somebody. That's because it reconfirms something I already know, or it means I got to Google a little bit to come up with the answer. So it's always really handy. One of the things I've seen in the last month or so that is a sad trend is that people are saying, I installed Flutter 2 and it broke everything. I had to roll back. Every time I've drilled down into these folks, they say, yes, I installed Flutter 2. That should only be a slight change in the Flutter SDK, which is like the all the new button styling things, all the snack bar now being controlled a different way. Very, very minor things is all that's going to do. And those are all just deprecated, not deleted. Yep. So there should be no change at all to your Flutter code. What I find when I ask these people, what exactly broke when you went to Flutter 2? Oh, well, I updated the pub spec. And I went, there's your problem. You were migrating without migrating properly. You need to run the tools as described. There's a wonderful video that came out of Flutter Explode, Flutter Engage, whatever that was. Right. I like Flutter Explode. I made it up accidentally once somewhere. People commented on it like, oh, yeah, Flutter Explode. Go for it, man. So anyway, the event we had on March 3rd, there was a video in the middle that I forget who it was. Somebody will remind me, I'm sure, who actually went through an entire migrate and showed all the steps to it. And one of the first steps you got to do is pub outdated -- mode equals null safety. If anything shows up in that report, don't migrate yet. Get that sorted out first. Get those packages up to snuff. Contact the people that are creating those packages, or you'll have to do the migration yourself.
Now, instead of just telling people, run this report, and if it says this, then don't do that. What does it mean when it flags in that report? What is it telling you, that there is no null safe equivalent in the package?
Generally,
that it doesn't exist?
Yes. And okay. So it can't come up with a solution for non-null safe.
Exactly. So version okay. And what that means is that when you run Flutter pub get, version solving failed is what you're going to see.
Right. And this is a big and so they say, well, then it broke everything, right? And it's like, no, you broke it by making it 2.12 before you were ready. And part of being ready is having all those dependency packages already upgraded.
And making it 2.12 means manually going in and changing your minimum SDK version, because it'll say minimum is something, and then
typically 2.8
greater than this and less than 3.
Yeah.
So when you manually change the minimum to 2.12.0, then your code has to be null safe.
Right. And so what I'm trying to also get across here is, please distinguish upgrading to Flutter 2, which gives you a new Flutter SDK, from going null safe, which is a different step and not directly related. You can do it once you upgrade to Flutter 2, but you don't have to do it right now.
I don't think Flutter 2 actually can break anything on its own.
Right.
Because
like I said, there's some deprecations for the some of the buttons and the snack bar.
But that's just going to put a line through them in your IDE and warn you it's still going to compile that code just fine.
But this is why I keep hearing people saying, "Oh, I had to roll back from Flutter 2." No, I bet you didn't. No, I bet you just needed to undo that change you made to your pub spec.
Yeah, anything that changed in Flutter 2, if it's different, you're going to get a line through. Like if you have a flat button, you'll see a line through the words flat button, and it says it's deprecated. Don't freak out and go, "Oh no, my code's broken." No, it'll compile. It's just telling you that this is old and that there's something new, and it's called a text button, and you should be using that instead. Okay, so what would, instead of a raised button, now it's an elevated button. So that's not going to break the code. Go for
it. Can I translate all of this into one sentence, which is like do a little bit of research before just typing Flutter upgrade? And make sure your packages are up to date, or they have a new version ready for Flutter 2 and Dart null safety version. And if everything looks fine, then just go for it.
And ultimately, make sure you make that git commit just before you start.
Of course.
Too many people are just running right through this, and they go, "How do I roll back?" Well, where was your last commit? Ooh,
it's called a strategic commit.
Yes, and tag it. Say pre-NNBD.
There are many times that you make a strategic commit.
Yes.
When it's raining and you hear rumbling outside, make a strategic commit.
Anyway, I hope at least this speech gets out into the ether. And please stop saying Flutter 2 equals NNBD. It's not. There are two orthogonal issues there. I was running NNBD before 2.0. So I also want to point out a couple things here. Freya's becoming quite the contributor. Yeah.
Again, it's open source.
Yeah.
Including the packages are usually open source too. So you can change the code, put in a PR, the package put in a PR and tell the package maintainer that they need to send you some coupons, to some gift certificates to Amazon or something that, you send them an invoice, send them a bill. But so I'm sure they'll be happy for the help though. And also one interesting thing,
yes.
My colleague just messaged me while updating a native iOS app over the last few years to Flutter. How did we ever live without hot reload?
We had those wonderful design tools that allowed us to do the equivalent of hot reload for the designers, but didn't give us anything as programmers.
Well, there was Instant Run.
Yeah.
Which 3 years ago wasn't all that instant. I understand it's gotten a lot better. And I understand it's gotten literally a lot better. So that's good. I did just put a link to the migration video that Randall's talking about into the chat. And just in case, actually, because a lot of people, most of our people are watching a video instead of the chat.
They're chatless.
So that is for you. I will leave that up there for a little bit. But of course, you have the magic pause button from YouTube.
And you also have Google for, Flutter Engage migration video. And I'm sure that'll be the first hit because Google has good SEO for its own stuff. So thanks for letting me rant there for a minute. But I've been seeing this more and more. How do you maintain two different versions of Flutter? Well, FVM is your solution for that. But really, why? Why do you need two different versions of Flutter? Oh, well, I upgraded and now my code doesn't work. Right. Did you also change the pub spec? Well, yeah, I wanted to be on the new code. Right. You weren't ready.
You can't just change it to 2.12 and have it magically work.
No, it doesn't.
But if you Google that, Flutter Engage migration video, and if you're not familiar with Engage, Engage was a big Flutter event that was just recent where they announced Flutter 2 and a lot of other things, including Linux or Canonical.
Yeah.
Now recommending that Flutter be the standard for creating apps for the Ubuntu desktop. Oh, Soner. Yeah. What about Fuchsia?
What do we know?
Well,
we know whatever's public.
Yeah,
that's
basically.
all we can talk about.
That's basic. And it's not just that it's all we can talk about. It's basically it's about all we know.
Yeah.
What I can tell you about Fuchsia is everybody in Google is very, very tight-lipped about Fuchsia. They're not saying much. I do happen to know that the Fuchsia team is very active. They are engaging with other teams and really bouncing ideas off of each other like crazy. So they're not just this little team sitting in the corner that no one knows anything about. Their SDK is open source. So if you are comfortable with, what is it written in now? C++ and Rust, and I can't remember what else.
And Flutter pieces of it are.
There is some Dart code in there, but I mean the underlying operating system itself, I believe, is mostly Rust and C++. You can dig into the repo and check it out.
The repo now provides links to Fuchsia releases that are available even for like my Mac, which is interesting. So I could be running Fuchsia as my native OS on my Mac.
Yes, you can install them on a device. Wait a minute, you found something. Maybe I must have missed it and not looked in releases because I built mine.
Yeah, you can build it if you want, but I'm much happier downloading a DMG, if it works.
If I would have known.
Yes.
Yeah, because I built mine for Linux. Mm-hmm. I haven't gotten anything Flutter to work on it yet because I did just only start working with it a few days ago.
Yeah.
But it should be quite interesting. And one of the fun things about it is apparently you can take your Flutter code and embed it into the operating system as a module, not just run it as an external app.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things that I'm already thinking about is Fuchsia used to have a UI called Armadillo, which was written in Dart and it was Flutter. And then it got pulled out and put into a different part of the repo. It still exists. It's just not what you see when you load it up. And by the way, one quick thought that just came to me. If you are building Fuchsia and you want a GUI, you need to build the workstation release version. If you build the other version, the only thing that you're going to get is a terminal. You're not going to get a GUI. So workstation release, that's the version that you need to build. But Armadillo was set aside, and now the GUI that you get is extremely simple. It's just black and white, and it looks like text, but you can click on the buttons. And but yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Go, Majid?
I also want to mention about Google I/O because usually we have some big news in Google I/O, and Google I/O is like around the corner. I think it's sometime in May, if I'm not mistaken. I registered already. But
Keep talking. I'll go get a link.
Yeah, my calendar knows when it is.
So you probably should register for Google I/O, and I think I have some feeling that they're gonna tell something about Fuchsia because we see, as Scott and Randall said, the team is pretty active, and I believe they will have something to share in Google I/O.
May 18th to 20th.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, definitely check that out. And that's a fully virtual conference again this year. I think it was also virtual last year too.
Yes, it was.
Fewer parties, unless you can party on your
Yeah,
own. I guess that's about it.
That's going to be the sad part.
Party the entire time you're watching the video. Right.
Yeah,
It's all up to you.
Yeah, I didn't say anything earlier about not being able to enjoy those big banquets
Yeah.
and everything that these huge tech companies have budgets for.
Mhm.
So there we go. If you want a different language than English, I would suggest that you just take it to IO / and then hit enter.
Yeah.
And it will probably look at your it will look at your
Browser preferences.
language of choice.
Yes.
But yeah, as far as Fuchsia goes, I know people are actively working on it. I know somebody who was on their DevRel team who ended up getting moved to a different team just because he was needed elsewhere. There's still plenty going on with Fuchsia. And the best way to understand what's going on with it is to check out the repo and actually start playing with it. So.
And the only things that I can add to this, I think one of the things I want to add to this is that if you go back to sort of the earlier design docs and stuff that were published, it seemed like it could be a possibility to run native on Android platform phones that would replace Android. This has never been a confirmed goal from the team because they can't say that. Otherwise, things will go crazy. Forward-looking statements and all that sort of stuff. But when you think of what it contains and the fact that they were demonstrating already running Android apps right on your desktop when you're running Fuchsia desktop, that tells me a lot. That's pretty exciting. I want to get to the day when even here on my Mac, I can fully script my entire UI because it's in a familiar language instead of whatever Mac OS uses.
Yep.
Yeah, I would love to see that. So maybe that's what's coming up soon. And if that's the case, yes. And it's also not like Android in that it does not have a Linux kernel, which gets them away from being lockstep with whatever Linus and his crew are doing. They can move it forward at their own pace and with their own design goals.
Okay. Okay, sorry, I had a thought. I swear I had it. Number one, StreamYard. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Number one, StreamYard needs a way that you can reach out, grab someone, and pull them into the stream.
Yeah.
Instead of just showing Bobby's thing on the banner there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's okay.
Oh yes, Fuchsia. We always get these questions about, is Flutter going to replace Android? Android actually is an operating system. Flutter is a UI toolkit. You cannot replace an operating system, any operating system, with any UI toolkit. It's never going to work. They're not the same thing. The bigger question is Fuchsia going to replace Android? My guess, my personal opinion is eventually yes. Now, here's the thing. There's a big difference between Android, the operating system, and developing apps in Android Studio using Kotlin, using the Android SDK. Okay. Is Fuchsia looking at replacing the Android operating system? Most likely for a number of reasons. Are people still going to be able to develop Android apps the same way they always have? I'm sure you will, because it would be financial suicide for Google to not have full compatibility for people to be able to write apps. And if there's one thing we know, Google knows how to make money.
Yeah.
And they are not going to commit financial suicide. Okay, so even if Fuchsia does replace Android, which eventually I believe it will, you're still going to be able to have Android apps. You're still going to be able to write Android apps. That's not going to change.
Well, at least we don't have one motivation for Fuchsia that was sort of looming back. Google had a lawsuit against Oracle, because Google
Well, the
brought the suit.
original was the other way around.
It was the other way for a while. Then Google brought this suit to try to get a decision reversed.
Oh yeah, no, it's been bouncing like a tennis ball.
Oh yeah, it go both ways. Google won this round. It doesn't mean Oracle's not going to try
round is
again.
over. No, this round is done.
Court, right.
The American Supreme Court said this is over.
Yeah.
And in short, it was about the way a list is implemented. Oracle tried to claim that they had an intellectual property patent on it. This also went back to the fact that that Google and Sun had a handshake agreement that Google could use Java for Android. And then when Oracle bought Sun, they said, no, we're not going to honor that.
Yeah.
So, and then the lawsuit started. Well, the lawsuit award that was going back and forth was 9 billion with a B, 9 billion US.
Yep.
This was really serious. And apparently also if Google had lost this lawsuit, it was going to cripple the way software is done completely.
Basically, it would have meant that companies and their lawyers could protect APIs, and you couldn't build to an API without getting a license from them to use that API. And that would have been devastating to the open source community as well as just commercial development. So I read a couple of pieces from the decision, and they really understood what this implication was.
Yeah.
And
the Supreme Court usually takes the time to know what they're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, this decision's been 6 months in the making because it was announced back in December when after all the hearings and everything happened, then they took this long to write the paper, the final paper. So
yeah, that actually does that is a Flutter topic that we're talking about because this lawsuit, okay, I'm going to try to be real short with this, but this lawsuit was a $9 billion problem for Google that centered around the Android operating system and around how to write an Android app.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Google would need a operating system that, actually, and also Linus Torvalds does not want to make changes to the Linux kernel that Google wants. Mm-hmm. So in a perfect world, Google would have their own operating system, Fuchsia.
Yep.
Running with and able to use a language that they have their hands in and know is going to be okay. Dart.
Yep.
Using a UI kit to do all the graphics on it. Okay. That they are also involved in, which is Flutter.
Yep.
Oh, look at this. They divorced from Linus Torvalds. They divorced from Java. They divorced from Oracle.
Yes.
Completely. And they will never have any of those problems again. This is why people were saying, oh, are they going to drop Flutter? Are they going to drop Flutter? No, they're not going to drop Flutter. Flutter solves a $9 billion problem and makes sure that they're never going to have to deal with this again.
Right.
Google has dropped tons of great, Google has dropped tons of great technologies.
We're just playing one on TV. We're not lawyers.
But I mean, I don't normally say this in public, but I have a friend who was an intellectual property attorney lawyer at Oracle.
Yeah.
It was awkward.
I bet.
But anyway, Google has dropped lots of great technologies based on C-level management. Well, they weren't going to be dropping Flutter, and they probably still will never be dropping Flutter because Flutter makes sure that they're never going to face a $9 billion problem again. And the people who won't let them drop Flutter are the lawyers and the accountants. So the tech people have nothing to do with this anymore. This is now about money.
Yep.
Alrighty. One other thing real quick. And Robbie's pointing out Android can rely on Linux. It's a pain to update. Yep. Fuchsia will take the place of Linux and still be able to launch Flutter as a native Linux. Oh yeah, there's all that too. And one other one here. We're going to get going pretty soon because it is kind of a slow day. But if you want to execute something only once at the initiation of a widget, that requires a build context. Yes, and it's actually provided for you without you having to deal with it. Should we use add post frame callback or did change dependencies or something else? It feels weird. Short version, anytime you run anything in a init state, you've got the build context. It doesn't tell you that, but you do. And that becomes evident when you start doing things with provider. And you can start initializing some of your stuff with provider there in the init state, which you really cannot do until you have the build context from the build method, which tells you the build method itself is what's turning around, going back and calling init state after it's created the context. So it might not look like you have the context when you're writing your code and doing init state, but you do.
Good point.
So, and with that, do we have anything else? We'll wait a few more minutes on the chat, but looks like we're getting pretty close to a wrap here. We are at an hour and a half. So,
which is
we've
probably the
managed to
shortest one of these in a while.
It's getting close. Yeah, we've gone quite a bit. Although I will let you folks know one important thing. We are well aware that live coding is the big draw. We have been talking about this behind the scenes. The thing is that in order to do that, we need to figure out a project. We need to figure out what the steps for the project are going to be. How much should we try to do in any one sitting? And another thing, who has the time? Because right now, with all of the new announcements and everything, you notice we lost Simon today. We are also losing Simon on the 28th. I can tell you that. He's already got meetings scheduled, and there is a chance he may not be able to be here next week either. He is getting killed. He is working nights, he is working weekends, and he's still getting killed. You notice we haven't had Jay on since 30 Days of Flutter. He's up to here and work. So in order to have somebody do the live coding, we've got to make sure that we know what we're going to be doing and how much we're going to be doing per episode. And we need to make sure that whoever's doing it is free. So we can
reasonably priced.
Yeah, really. The other possibility is if we plan the app and the segments well enough, then maybe we can have rotating hosts doing it, but that's going to require some good planning. But my main point is, yes, we're aware that what people really want to see is coding. That's what we really want to bring you to. But unfortunately, it's not quite as easy as just picking up a magic wand and saying, we're going to do it.
One of the items on that checklist that you left out, but it's absolutely mandatory. You must pay the demo gods their tribute so that the demo goes well. That's always tricky.
I was told 3 years ago when Simon and I were getting ready to take a stage at DroidCon London, which was nuts. I've never seen a crowd like people were standing along the walls and sitting in the aisle and sitting on the floor in front of all the chairs. I've never seen it like that before. But we were just about to take the stage then, and I was joking around with Simon, saying that I was going to ask the audience if anyone had a virgin we could sacrifice before doing the live coding. And somebody was like, no, don't say that. Don't say that.
Yes. Live demos have been my bane over the years.
Oh,
I've had them mostly work. Thank God. Where's wood? I know there's wood.
If you want to see the ultimate in a demo going wrong, look up Flutter Live, Live. When they were announcing Flutter 1.0, Matt Sullivan and Emily Fortuna were in front of the camera getting ready to run the demo, and it went sideways.
Yeah.
You want to see some of the best recovery ever for speakers. Now, the ladies were talking about doing speaker training. When you are pair presenting with someone else and something goes wrong, one of you works on fixing it, and the other walks to the far end of the stage and tells the audience, look over here, and keeps talking so you distract them from the other person.
Yeah.
It was masterful. Matt just kept people looking at him and talking the entire time while Emily was over there lighting the keyboard on fire, trying to get the thing working. So yeah. Anyway, sacrifice a rubber chicken, burn some incense. We'll make sure it's going to work just fine.
It's bad enough that my screencasts now have been all canned now. Not that I did the presentation ahead of time, but I have, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4 inside VS Code that have my variations I'm building on the code that I'm trying to present, rather than typing a single thing. If I ever type live in one of my screencasts, you can see I type badly sometimes. And it's much better for you to not watch me type. This is always my goal.
Rohan, I'm looking at that. That's going to be a very difficult question to answer just free form right here with nothing to look at. Your best bet really for that one is going to be to post it on Stack Overflow and tag Randal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime, buddy.
I now have a canned response to people who tag me that says basically, I'm just going to paste it in the chat, but that's just our private chat. Now it says, please don't tag or mention me or send me private messages to start a conversation unless you're prepared to be a paying client. I answer publicly posted community questions only when I have time and the appropriate knowledge.
True. Yeah. But if you see Rohan do it, you know that I told him to. So,
yeah, another place I would strongly recommend. I've seen a lot of activity on Discord, and they do have a specific UI channel for that, and you would get quick answers from brilliant experts, and maybe me, but at least brilliant experts on Discord. I've been finding that probably the best place to get my own questions actually answered. So check that out. That's listed from flutter.dev/community. Look for the Discord server there.
Yeah. Okay. One last one real quick before we go. Not that we have ever seen this question before.
Oh, no. I use bricks and a little bit of, stuff in between them.
String and a water level.
Yes, right. There we go.
Just like the pyramids. But
yes.
No, in all seriousness, if you ever read The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, they say that the ultimate answer is 42. That's not true. The ultimate answer is it depends.
Yeah.
What architecture? Your architectures are going to depend mostly on what state management you choose to use, and what state management you choose to use is going to depend on what your needs are for the app that you're using. If you're doing something massive in enterprise, you probably are going to want to go with Redux.
Yep.
Most other cases, Provider, Riverpod. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Randal. I
was just going to say that I learned Smalltalk in 1981. Yeah, I'm that old. So I learned Smalltalk in 1981, and they were huge fans of Model View Controller. Mm-hmm. So I've been applying that particular architecture to everything I've pretty much done since then. Perl code, website development, my Flutter apps that I've been building personally, because I think once you understand MVC, you really understand kind of why you have to have that separation of needs, especially if you plan on doing any testing. And if you're not planning on testing, please don't release it. You should have tests. You should have tests. And once you start writing tests, you understand why the model code has to be separate from the view code, which has to be separate from the controller code, because you need to stub out some of that stuff to run the unit tests. And without a properly designed separation between model view and controller, or model view and view model, it doesn't really matter what you follow as long as you can get the tests in there.
Yep. And a good provider setup, you can do that. Majid, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was actually trying to say, not just for Flutter, for like any software in general, choosing an architecture, as Scott says, it depends. It's a lot of characteristic like the terms is actually characteristic for architecture, so that they go through that and they will define them properly based on their needs. And remember, there's always a trade-off.
Yeah.
So you need to decide between maybe several different architecture and somehow align them with your needs. So the short answer probably is that it's not just about Flutter. So state management, as Scott says, is the important part of it, but it's not the only part of it, right? So probably you want to get into the modularity, like right now Randal said, maybe you want to separate the concern in different way. Maybe you want to have like layer architecture. Maybe like recently we had a discussion with Simon about domain-driven design and stuff. And the thing is that you need to sit, evaluate your needs, find all of those characteristics. Let me tell you some of those characteristics. For example, do you want to scale your app? And if you want, how much? Or these apps, for instance, do you want to have like a large team to maintain or a small team? How many screens you want to have eventually? And how do you maintain the state? Is it per page or like globally throughout the application, you need some kind of state? So these are the things that you need to sit and think about it and then write about it and then go through the solutions and find them. And at the end, compare and see which one is fulfilling your requirement better. And maybe part of that solution is some of the state management. Maybe Redux is part of it. Maybe Block is another one. Maybe MVC is like exactly what you need, or MVVM, or a lot of other things that it's already there. So, but as Scott said, it depends. And keep in mind, there is always a trade-off. You might lose some kind of architecture in favor of others.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
Well said there, Majid. But I also want to add one more statement there, which is this is not a religious issue, but people make it religious.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That they'll get into a particular tribe. Well, Block's the only way to go. I hear that a lot from people. Or GetX. Got to use GetX. No, you don't.
Don't start. Don't start.
Okay,
Don't start.
let's not talk about that.
But, well, and actually, I was going to touch on this real quick.
Speak of the devil.
All right, the main ones that people, and I've talked to a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of the top people in Flutter. Well, a lot. Yeah. Anyway, they've looked at a lot of things, and the things that they use break down to almost all are provider or block. The Flutter team recommends provider still. However, the person who wrote provider is recommending Riverpod, because Riverpod is a complete rewrite of provider in order to overcome some of provider's shortcomings. The same person wrote them both. Okay, that's Remy. I have heard it said that people should skip provider and go straight to Riverpod. I don't think that's a good idea, because provider is much simpler and easier to learn. And provider is like Riverpod is like the next step beyond. So everything you learn in provider, almost all of it will still be applicable when you move to Riverpod.
There's also
Okay.
a lot more provider videos and
Yes.
documents out there than there are Riverpod, because Riverpod's still relatively new in computer terms, I should say. But there's more good Riverpod stuff being done by the big screencasters.
Yeah. So
just Google for
Reso Coder.
Reso Coder's great. Andrea did one, and so there's like 4 of them that are really worth watching. And if you Google for Riverpod Flutter tutorial, you'll see a lot of written stuff and a lot of video stuff about it.
If you search YouTube for Andrea Bizzotto Flutter, he's got just an unbelievable amount of stuff.
Great stuff.
But the other one really that companies are using, that agencies are using, is Block. So it's really like provider and block, unless you're doing something really big, in which case everybody goes to Redux. But again, Redux is a lot of boilerplate and it's overkill for the vast majority of apps.
And a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of moving
You have
parts.
to totally understand streams, for example. That's the same thing with block.
Yeah. And that's, and block is streams. Riverpod and provider are not streams. Speaking of things like a religion, we keep hearing about GetX, and I talked to probably 30 people about it. Everyone is either saying that they don't use it for this reason or that reason, and some people have dug deeply into the code. I know a while back that there was some not nice talk coming from GetX people saying negative things about other systems. So that turned a lot of people off, for one. But
their marketing team needed to be correct.
But in short, the main thing that I have heard is that your needs outgrow it very quickly. And GetX does pride itself on being simple. Maybe a little too simple. And because that's what I'm hearing now. I know of about 4 people who have taken a good look at it, and that's been what they've told me. Okay, and they've looked not just at using GetX, they have torn it apart and looked under the hood. So I know a lot of people seem to love it. I realize that. And if it's working for you, great. Fantastic. But I can tell you that the vast majority of companies you go to, they're using Riverpod, they're using Block. A ton of them are using Block. A lot of them who are coming from other systems are trying to stick with Redux because that's what they're used to and that's what they expect to use. And again, provider was the method recommended by the Flutter team, and the gentleman who wrote provider says that Riverpod's even better, and it's the next logical step. So those are your main ones.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we are going to wrap it up.
Sure. Hey, Scott, can you get that URL on the video too, just in case somebody's not seeing the chat?
The URL on the video in case people are not seeing the chat.
The one that lists
actually a very good URL, so you can find a lot of options and you can compare the state management without even experimenting. Exactly.
It's in the private chat.
Yes, but I also put it in the public chat. But some people don't get either of those. They want to watch the video and still have that URL.
Yep. And this is where we turn around and put it up on the
on screen.
Let me see. I need to turn that off.
Scott's the button pushing monkey today. Here we go.
Where's my banana?
I know. Afterwards.
That's a nice short URL, so we're going to leave it up there for a little while.
And if you if you Google Flutter state management, I think it's the first or second hit. So that also can help.
Yeah.
But this is Google official recommendations by the Google teams.
Although one thing that's important, and this came up regarding an unnamed state management system. Being listed in this list is not an endorsement by the Flutter team. They have made that abundantly clear. Because there was a system that was put up in that list just because it's an option, which the Flutter team looks around and says, what are people's options? And they make a list of it, and they're just trying to make it easy for you to check it all out. And some people who were behind a certain state management system ran around saying that they were endorsed by the Flutter team because they were in this list. And it got them yanked from the list because of it. So the Flutter team's been very, very clear. You know, they send us nice shirts. You know, they send us nice jackets. They send us hoodies. That doesn't mean they endorse us. They come on this show and they talk to us. That's not endorsement. That's them just being nice to us. Okay. And believe me, if they're not endorsing us, then just being included in a list of state management possibilities does not mean that they're endorsing that state management.
Yep.
So, anything else, Majid? Randal?
No, nothing from me.
All
We'll
righty.
be back next week, hopefully. Probably without Simon, but we'll try it again.
Yeah, it's a
As long
coin
as
toss
Scott
as to
can be
whether or
here.
not Simon's going to make it.
Yeah, as long as one of the two of you can be here to push the buttons. Or
Quite
teach me how
possibly,
to do
although
it.
there's a gentleman named Ben who might or might not be watching right now, and he's going to get to determine whether or not I'm available next Wednesday.
Okay.
But that's a whole different story.
Yes.
Anyhow, I hope you all
Cool.
have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Sign up for Flutteristas.
Sign up for the Flutteristas, and also I will throw that one up here one more time real quick.
Yeah. I'm signed up. I'll
And-
see you guys Saturday.
One other thing, while we're holding that flutteristas.org up, get your shot if you can. Get your jab, whatever they're calling it, where you are. My partner has worked in what they call sterile injectables, which is the medicines that get injected. And what a lot of people don't realize is the effectiveness of most vaccines up until now, like the influenza vaccine, is a little less than 50%. Okay, these are not, when you get a shot, this is not a guaranteed thing that you're not going to get the disease. What ends up happening, though, is because it's 45 to 50% effective, it makes it much more difficult for influenza to go running through a population, because it hits enough inoculated people that it peters out and it can't go any further.
Yeah.
So one thing a lot of people don't realize is that with these new mRNA vaccines, these are not the same type of vaccines where they take a virus and kill it. They're taking a harmless virus and just basically making it trick your body into thinking that you've got the bad virus. So what ends up happening is you might feel sick for a day or two because, well, it's doing a good job of tricking your body. This is what it's supposed to do. And the big thing is they are being proved to be 85 or 90% effective, which is twice as effective as a flu vaccine. Okay, it's no one's ever even heard of anything like this before, that it's that effective. And the other thing is that it will also help inoculate you against certain strains. But here's the biggest thing about it. If you get a COVID shot, or you get your series, that doesn't guarantee you're not going to get COVID. There is no 100% guarantee against that. However, of the millions and millions and millions of people who have gotten these shots, let's say 10% of them are not protected and 10% of them can get COVID. Well, a small amount of them did get COVID. Several thousands of people who got the shot did get COVID. You know how many of them died? None. If you get that shot, you may or may not still get COVID. It's a very small chance. No one has died. So if you want to make sure you don't die, get the stupid shot.
And in the meanwhile, and even afterward, wear a mask when you're
Yes.
in public. Please.
It is the
wear a
number
mask.
one biggest thing is to wear a mask. That's the biggest thing that can make the biggest difference.
Yeah, still.
All right. With that, we are out, and we'll see you next week.
See you on the streams.
Yeah.
See you in the chat channels. I'm everywhere.
Yeah.